Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Yeah, I just got dropped from the show. This is the second time this has happened this week, and I don't know why it's happening. But anyway, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and thanks everybody for tuning in. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open. I have the link posted in there to what I want to continue talking about. I usually do the show at 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta time, Mountain Standard Time, just because I have to. I work and I have to do these shows early. But I'm off work this week, so I bumped the time up just a little bit so I could sleep in because I've been staying up way too late. And so thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm not a counselor, not a therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen, survivor myself of child abuse and secondhand victim of domestic violence, and I just wanted to be one more voice out there for people. You know, I know so many people are suffering through this. I know so many survivors myself of child abuse and neglect and whatnot, and I just, I know so many children right now are suffering in this situation. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and, we work around the clock, really, all of us, except for the time that we have to sleep, right, to stop child abuse. And as a survivor, it was really important for me to move forward on my healing journey and, to keep searching for information, to keep searching for what was going to help me, to make sense of my world, right, and to be able to make peace. And, it's been about, 3.5 years that I've been on my healing journey, and I've come a long, long way. I was sitting on the couch contemplating suicide or self-injury, one or the other, about 3.5 years ago, and today I can tell you, being on the other side of that is just, I wish this for everybody, I really do. And I just feel like, not enough people are speaking out, and not enough people can speak out. Their voices are silenced for many reasons. The abusers might still be living. They might not, trust people to tell their story, which, quite often we have to be careful who we tell our personal information to. And so I just wanted to be a voice to say, hey, just a voice of encouragement to reach out in whatever way you can to get some help and not suffer alone in silence, which is what I was doing. And so, in my own healing journey, wanted to let people know that, hey, we do deserve to have a good life. And we did not deserve to be abused, and no child does. No one does. No person on the planet, actually, but especially children, because they're vulnerable. They are completely helpless. And so, it's just so incredibly wrong. And I just wanted to be one more voice out there for people. So you have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking a lot about everything to do with abuse. That's what I talk about. And the subject is very sensitive, so you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and then listen at your own discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show with you, an adult who's older who can help you make the decision on whether you should be listening to the show or not. Children's rights should be protected at all times. That's what we do. Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, we're out there, we're promoting education, awareness, and really standing up for child rights, right? So you have the right to be protected, and you should know that this show has a lot of adult content on it. And in any chat room situation, you should have someone know what you're doing, because at any given time, there are hundreds of thousands of child sexual predators out there online trying to get a hold of children, and they will use any means that they can. And so I think that you owe it to yourself to protect yourself, and you owe it to yourself to find the information out there to help you stay safe, because there is some really good websites out there. All you have to do is type into your browser internet safety, online safety for children, things like this, online safety for families, and it will bring up websites, and you can find out just, the do's and don'ts, what to do and what not to do when you're in chat rooms, what information, not to give away. Be very, very, very careful. Children are losing their lives. Young people are losing their lives to these child sexual predators, and if they're not killed, they're assaulted, sexually assaulted, and their lives will be forever changed, innocence lost, and they will have a lifetime, to try to deal with it and cope with it. So be very, very careful what you're doing. and get the information. Don't meet people that you just meet in chat rooms in person. Don't give away your address, your phone number. Don't even tell them your real name when you're online. Use a fake name, and never ever tell them what school you go to or anything that could lead them to you, right? You don't want to give away that information, right? So important, so very important. So we'll get right on with this topic here. I've been looking at this for weeks now. We've been talking about anger management. This website is awesome, www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES, angerresources.com. And Dave Decker and Michael Obsatz have put this website together. They're both therapists and work in the field of helping people and also helping people to manage their anger, and they know a whole lot about it. I found it very helpful myself. So if you wanted to go back and listen to the archives, you can. But I would say just go to this website and get the information here. This is awesome. It's been very helpful for me just to see. I had a lot of anger issues, and even still do. And so I'm learning how to manage my own anger so that I was stuffing my anger. That's what I was doing because I didn't want to. Excuse me. I didn't want to hurt anybody, right? So that was the whole issue. And so because when I was a young person, I was quite volatile and angry and sometimes hurt people. And so, as a young teenager and even a young adult, so when I got older, I realized, hey, I don't want to hurt people, right? So then I started stuffing the anger, and then what I was doing was destroying myself. I was hurting myself, self-sabotaging, and also, it was internalized anger, and it was really killing me is what it was doing. And so, there's ways we can learn to deal with this stuff, and that's what I'm doing right now, right? And it's a journey, it's a walk, and there is information out there that's very, very helpful, and I find this website to be extremely helpful, in helping us to make sense of what's going on with our anger, because anger is normal. That Dave Decker points that out very clearly. It's a normal reaction that something's wrong, and it's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to abuse people or abuse ourselves because we're angry. That's where the distortions and perversions of anger start to manifest in people's lives when they don't handle their anger properly. And that's what, abuse has a lot of issues because of anger. There's a lot of abuse. Parents with anger management problems abuse their children. That was my case. My parents were both very angry people and did not know how to properly handle it and took it out on their family and each other. It's sad. They just pass the cycle right on down to us, and that's what I've been talking about the last 3 weeks, really, with this web information on this website. So we were looking at, yesterday morning, we were looking at taking the steps to stop the abuse from Dave Decker, and we sort of went through the first few questions, but he's kind of talking about the whole issues of men, anger, that men might have a problem with. But I think this is kind of information for all of us, right? I mean, women can be abusers too, and so it's not just men. We can all learn something from this, I think, and it's just that Dave Decker is really kind of focusing on the whole issue of the male being in the situation where men are the batterers and men are the abusers. He wanted to actually address them, but I think this information is very helpful. The first question, he says here, that the following 20 steps from my book, Stopping the Violence, a group model to change men's abusive attitudes and behaviors, are critical in the process of change if you make the decision to do something about anger, abuse, and control issues in your own life. And I think that that can go along for anybody. I mean, anybody can benefit from that, women, men. My mom was my main abuser, and my dad was also abusive towards me as well in every way, physically and verbally, emotionally, psychologically. But my mom was my main abuser. And so she was very vicious, and she was hateful and mean and downright nasty. And so women can abuse too, and anybody who's survived out there who had a situation where someone in your family, a woman, abused you would know women can be very violent and they can be very vicious. And so everybody could benefit from this information, I think, not just men. He has 20 questions here, 20 steps, right? And the first one we went over was acknowledge to yourself and others that you have a problem with anger, abuse, and control. We went over that one. Just acknowledging to ourselves and others, right, that we have a problem. Number 2, address mental health and chemical use issues when they are present in your life. And number 3, come to know that when you are abusive to others, you are always feeling inadequate, insecure, powerless, and unlovable. And number 4, we left off on number 4, realize that controlling and abusive behavior hurts you and those you love. And he says here, when you are abusive, you erode the self-esteem and self-respect of those around you, and you teach your children to be either bullies or doormats in their interactions with others. In addition, you also create emotional, physical, and potentially legal consequences for yourself when you engage in these sorts of behaviors. So this is just so true, right? I mean, it hurts everyone. Abusive behavior hurts us all. It hurts ourselves, and it hurts those around us, right? And so it's so important that people know their behaviors. You know, we're responsible for our own behaviors. What I was talking about yesterday was that as children, you know, we really don't have the choice. You know, other people put their abusive behaviors on us, and really there's not much we can do as children but sit there and take it, unfortunately, sadly enough. That's what we're trying to stop. But the thing is as adults, right, we actually have the responsibility to not be abusive, and that's because that's the whole issue, right? If my parents had done the right thing and stopped the abuse, you know, then you know, we would have been a whole lot better off. But my parents did not take responsibility for their own actions, and so therefore destroyed our family and their marriage, right? So I can't just say, oh, well, my parents should have been responsible for their behavior, and then me, in my own adult life, in my own adult walk, go around abusing people, whether it's, you know, verbally or emotionally or physically, right? I mean, it's just so wrong to assume that everybody else around us should watch their own behavior and straighten up their own behavior and stop abusing people, and then us, well, it's perfectly okay that I do what I do. Right? We have to all keep our behavior in check, and just because I was abused as a child does not give me the right to go around abusing people. You know, a lot of people like to use that excuse. My mom did, because she was abused as a child horrifically, and my grandmother actually killed one of my uncles. Right, her son. You know, she beat him up and made him sleep in the barn, and he died of pneumonia. And but she beat up all of her children. She was a horrible woman, and my mom was majorly abused in every way, right? She was horrifically abused, and so she took that out on us, and she was just like, well, what about me? I was abused, and in the meantime abused us, right? And so we can't use that as an excuse. There's no excuse for abuse, see? So I have to keep my own behaviors in check to make sure that I'm not taking my own garbage out on people, and that I'm not mistreating people around me, all because of the cycle of abuse that was put on me. I mean, and if we would all take responsibility for our own actions, we could stop the cycle of abuse, right? But that's the thing. A lot of people won't look at their own behavior. And I mean, I was talking about that all last week, and even, you know, part of this week was that, you know, if my parents didn't want to take responsibility for their behavior, and they always blamed each other or the children. It was always somebody else's fault, right? And it still is, even today. My dad is still living, and, you know, he's 87 years old. He's an old man, and, you know, he has apologized for his behavior, but he never admits what he did. He won't say, okay, I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for beating on you. I'm sorry for threatening your life. I'm sorry for hurting your mother and raping her. I'm sorry for hurting the boys and kicking them around and mistreating them. And, you know, he never apologized for what he did. He just says, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't do the right thing by my family. That's what he says. I guess I'm supposed to just think that that's okay, right? So, I mean, I'm trying to learn how to deal with that. But the whole thing is that he never did really take responsibility for his actions, and my mom never did. She really never she never apologized. She passed away about 15 years ago. But the thing is I never heard, you know, I'm sorry for what I did to you, right? She never wanted to take responsibility for it because she was always blaming my dad. And so that's the whole issue of not taking responsibility for our own actions and being accountable, you know, for what we're doing, and we in our own lives, you know, to other people, in our families, in our homes, in our work, in our workplaces, in our neighborhoods, right? We have to be, if we want other people to behave properly, well, we have to first of all look at ourselves, right? Because it just doesn't do any good to walk around saying, look at how those people behave and look how horrible they are, and then, you know, not take a good hard look at how we're behaving. Because I'm serious, the cycle of abuse, it just continues on, and I really wanted to change that, you know, and like he says here, that, you know, this whole stuff, this abusive behavior hurts us and the ones that we love. It erodes self-esteem, self-respect of those around us, and teaches our children to be either bullies or doormats, and that's so true, right? Because my parents, I mean, there was 7 children. I'm the last of 7 children. Some of us were bullies and some of us were doormats, right? It just sort of, you know, our personalities just sort of went along with what was happening to us, and some of my siblings became doormats, and some of my siblings became bullies, and I became a bully. I was a bully, not in my home really, because I was already being abused, so really there was not much I could do to bully people in my own home. Outside the home, I was definitely a bully because I was doing what my parents taught me how to do, which was push people around and hit people. And, I was often hitting my friends, my little friends, pushing them down, shoving them down. Like, my little friends would come to hug me, and I'd just push them away. And because that's what my mom was doing to me, right? And I just thought that's what I was supposed to do. I didn't want anybody hugging me. My mom taught me how to do that. And then, hitting kids. I was often hitting kids when I was really little. And then if my mom happened to catch me doing it, then I would get another beating for that. So then I was confused because I was like, I'm doing what you're showing me how to do. I'm just behaving the way that you taught me to behave, and now you're beating me for it. And I mean, I'm not talking discipline. I'm talking, beatings, severe beatings, right? So that's the whole issue. My mom was like 5'10", weighed like almost 300 pounds, and I was just a tiny little kid, and she would just rage and smash, and really she could have killed me. So the thing is. I paid the price for what they taught me how to do. They taught me how to behave like that and then beat me for it. And that's a lot of problems with parents, They teach their kids all these horrible behaviors and then punish them for it, which they would consider it punishment or, discipline, right, which it's abuse, right? So that's the whole issue. It's very, very sad. Then, some of us, out there might become doormats. My sister's a doormat, and sadly enough, she really is. And she ends up in these domestic violence situations. She married a man that was abusive to her, and then ended up in another relationship years later, who the guy just had no respect for her, treated her like crap, and he wasn't necessarily abusive. It's just that he was a jerk, and he was always saying that if she left him, he would kill himself and stuff. He wasn't necessarily physically abusing her. He was pulling a lot of psychological garbage on her, which is abuse, right? And so, she stayed in that relationship for a long, long time because she's a doormat. She doesn't know how to not let people, she doesn't know where the boundaries are, right? So my parents produced a bunch of bullies and doormats, right? And that's just absolutely horrible. So, I mean, we have to be very careful what we do with, and how we behave around other people and children, if you have children, right? Because it will have consequences later, and I think that's what Dave Decker's trying to point out. Question 5 is, or comment number 5 here says, understand that anger is different from abuse and control. It says, anger is a normal and natural human emotion. It is what you do with this emotion when it arises that determines whether it is helpful and productive or becomes toxic and destructive. So that's what we have to learn. That's the whole issue. It's about, learning how to manage that and how to handle that and not allow it to become a perversion of this emotion, of like he called it twisted, kind of like perversions of anger, right? That's what abuse is. Because anger is normal. We are going to get angry, but we need to learn how to handle it so that we don't hurt people or hurt ourselves, right? By being either too aggressive, or too abusive, or becoming too passive, and like I was doing, just kind of stuffing my anger because I didn't want to hurt people, I didn't want to make waves, I wanted to have a good, peaceful life. And when I got older and I realized, hey, I want to have peace in my life, and of course it was a false peace, but at least I was trying. But the thing is, I went the passive way, and then ended up being taken advantage of quite often, and then I'd be angry about it, and then if somebody pushed me just a little too far, that whole rage that had been inside of me for a long, long time would come out on this one person. So it was almost like, that one poor person who just pushed the last button, got all of my rage. And so that's the way I used to operate. And so, it's very damaging to that person, I'm sure, because they had to listen to a tirade of, 10 years of pent-up anger and rage, right? And it was blown way out of control. And, I mean, my sister's like that, too. So we don't know how to handle our anger because we watched our parents do this to each other pretty much on a daily basis, this eruption like a volcano of anger and hatred spewing out of their mouths and out of their fists, right? And that was their behavior towards each other. Now, when they were out in public, they were great. You know, well, not really. They would fight in stores and stuff too. Like my mom especially would scream at my dad, and you know, then they'd fight out in the parking lot and stuff. And if we got involved, then we'd get a beating out in the parking lot. I can't tell you how many times I was beaten in parking lots. But anyway, yeah, it's absolutely horrific how people behave, and then they expect their children to behave properly. You know, it's like, hey, you guys, the parents are the teachers, man. You know what I mean? And when parents are not doing the right job and not teaching their children properly, bringing them up with care and love and respect and, you know, mercy and compassion and love. Hey, what's wrong with a little bit of love? You know what I mean? My parents did not love us, and they literally told us, you know, that they did not love us, right? My mom made it very clear that she only loved her boys, did not love her girls, and did not love me for sure because I was born out of rape. So she made that very clear. And so, you know, then expected me to behave myself, right? And expected me to be a good kid and you know, tortured me because of it, right? So my parents were very sick, right? And so the whole issue is that we can't continue that behavior on. So if you're a survivor out there, you know, and you're having a hard time coping and you're just thinking, man, I don't want to hurt my kids, but I don't know how to deal with this stuff, make sure, you know, if you have children, that you get help with these issues so that you don't put this garbage on your children, because that's what my parents did. My parents were actually both abused, right, in different ways, right? And they both grew up in these ignorant homes being abused in the 1920s, right? So they're backward and the anger and the hatred that they had for their own lives, and then they got married and then found that they couldn't really rely on each other because they had all these issues, and they quickly learned how to hate each other, which was really sad. You know what I mean? They continued this thing on for years, almost 50 years, you know, and ruined their whole family, ruined their own lives, and because they wouldn't get any help, and they were told to get help, court-ordered counseling. They were told to get marriage counseling and as well their own counseling for their own issues, abuse issues and anger management problems and mental illness, because they both had mental illness, and they were told to get the children some help, right? All of us we were all alive at that time. You know what I mean? I was just a baby. I was probably just barely 2 years old. And when they were busted on child abuse charges, so like they went to 2 counseling sessions and we moved out of the country, so they just blew it off, you know, and that's really sad. You know, we can't, you know, so that's what I'm saying. We can't pass the cycle on. So I have to keep my own behaviors in check so that I don't become my parents. And that was a big issue for me. I didn't want to be like my parents, so I just stuffed the anger, and then I was just self-sabotaging and self-injuring and wanting to end my life because I couldn't handle the pressure of stuffing that anger and not reaching out for help. So make sure you do, you know, get some help, right? We do deserve to have a good life, and so does everyone around us. You know, they don't deserve to have our anger and our abuse issues on them. So we need to make sure we get help so we don't hurt people or hurt ourselves, right? So important. And he says here, number 6, recognize that becoming abusive is always a choice. And this is so true. And, you know, a lot of people don't think that abuse is a choice, but it is. It says you are continually making decisions even when you feel rageful and completely out of control. You know, abuse is a choice. No one's holding hey, I'm sure it's happened before where I know it happens where people force someone to abuse someone, right? I know sick people have done this, and other people have forced people by, you know, gunpoint to abuse somebody. I know it has happened. But my parents, nobody was standing over my parents with a gun saying, if you don't abuse your children, I'm going to kill you. See, my parents, when they woke up in the morning, made a clear decision they were going to hurt us. You know what I mean? And they knew exactly what they were doing because they had so much hatred for life and for each other and for their marriage and the way that their lives turned out, that they were like, we are not going to allow our children to be happy. We're going to hurt them just like we're hurting. And it was a choice they made. They made that choice every day. And, you know, that's quite pathetic, and it makes me really angry because they had the choice to not do that. They had the choice to hug us and to hold us. They had the choice to call us all together as a family in the room, which they never did, not once, and tell us how much they loved us and how much we meant to them, you know, and that they did care about us and hug us all and hold us and tell us we were the best kids ever. We never heard that. We were told that we were not wanted and that if we opened our mouths we would be beaten or killed. So, you know what I mean? We were completely abused in every way. So that's the thing. They made a choice to do that, the two of them. And abuse is a choice. It always is. So when I would choose to lash out at people, I knew what I was doing. And I knew it looked like I might have been out of control when I was doing it, but I was completely in control. And I wanted to lash out and I wanted to hurt people. So that's the whole issue. I recognize it. I know what it is. I know what my parents did. You know, they wanted to hurt us. Yeah, like I was saying yesterday morning, you know, when my mom picked up the rolling pin to beat me with it, she knew exactly what she was doing. Now, she looked out of control because she was raging. She could have killed me, right? But the thing is that, you know, she knew what she was doing when she was doing it. And that, you know, to me, that just bothers me because how can you do that to your child? You know what I mean? How can you, you know, that no child deserves that. So if you're a survivor out there, you know, you did not deserve that. The abuser's choice, they chose to do what they did. It is their shame. It is not our shame. The shame lies and belongs to the abuser, you know. And so, hey, if I'm going to be abusive, the shame lies to me. You know what I mean? It's going to, the shame on me if I'm going to abuse people because I was abused. Or I have anger management issues, or whatever the case may be, some sort of pathetic excuse to hurt people, you know, and say, oh, well, you know, I was hurt as a child. And, you know, no, there's no excuse. It's a choice we make. So we need to make the right choice and not abuse people and not hurt people and learn how to be assertive without being abusive and learn how to not be a doormat, learn how to be assertive without being too passive or too abusive, you know, too aggressive. And we can learn how to do this. We can learn to change these behaviors. And that's what I'm doing, right? And I decided it was a conscious choice, right? Because I wanted to have a good life, and I thought, man, I need to do this for myself. I need to move forward in my healing journey, and I need to help myself so I don't self-sabotage and end up killing myself years down the road or hurting somebody else, right? Because it's not right. Abuse is never right. It's always a choice, and it's never. And there's just no excuse for abuse as far as I'm concerned. So comment number 7 from his book, he says, take responsibility for what you feel, how you think, and how you act instead of blaming others. It says, people can certainly trigger your emotional reactions, but no one has the power to cause you to think or behave in a controlling or abusive way. That decision comes from inside you. So take responsibility for what you feel, how you think, and how you act instead of blaming others. And that's just it, you know, like, that's really what we've been talking about here this morning, is that we have to be responsible for our own actions and not blame other people for what happened. I can't sit here and abuse other people and hurt myself and blame it on my parents. It's like, it's my choice. I have the choice to get help and move forward, or I have the choice to continue that cycle on. It's my choice, right? My parents made the wrong choice, but I don't have to do that. And so whoever the abuser was in your life, you know, they made the wrong choice. They did the wrong things, but you don't have to do that, and you know you can choose to not abuse, and you or yourself or anybody else, and you can choose to move forward. And we have the choice. It's actually our responsibility, right? I mean, we have to take responsibility for our own lives as adults, and that's kind of what got, you know, like that's really what got me moving. Like 3.5 years ago. It hasn't even been 4 years yet, because I was sitting on the couch thinking, you know, am I ever going to be out of this pain? Am I ever going to be able to function? Because I really wanted to end my life or get out of this pain. That was the big thing, right? But I didn't want to kill myself, really, because my brother had killed himself, and I knew how that had hurt me as a person, right, when my brother killed himself, and how much pain I was in because of it. But then I realized, I said, you know what? I cannot let my parents win this fight. I can't. I just can't. I have to. I'm winning this fight. And I got up off the couch and I said, I do deserve to heal. I do deserve to have a good life. I do love myself. I do care about myself, and I do want to have a good life. And I got mad, and I mean, I'm talking productive mad, not counterproductive mad. I mean, I got mad and I started learning how to self-nurture, because I was never going to get that from my parents. I was never going to get that from from the people that it should have come from my mom, right? I was never going to be told I was wanted or loved or needed by them, and so, you know, and wanted. And I said, you know what, that's okay, because I want myself. I want my inner child. I love my inner child. I love myself. And I took a stand, and I said, man, I'm moving forward. I'm winning this fight, you know. We've got a minute left. I hope you will win this fight too, and I hope you will do everything that you can to stay here and win this fight and have a good and healthy and happy life, man. We deserve it. And the only people that can do that for us is us. we have to make the choices to get help, right? So make sure you reach out and get some help. Don't suffer in sadness and silence. Call a crisis line if you have to, man. I'm not beyond that. And it's so important that you just don't suffer alone and continue. You deserve so much better. You really do. We all deserve so much better, right? So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. I'll probably bump the show up again to 9 o'clock just because I'm off this week. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Check out Kazi K Books on YouTube, www.youtube.com/user/Kazi K Books, On the Couch with Kazi K. She's a survivor. She's inviting everybody to come to her couch and tell their story. Make sure you check it out. And if you need information, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio or Facebook or whatever. I'll be around. Have a great day and keep moving forward. You do count. You do matter. You matter to me. So take care, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.